So, we are going to discuss sex trafficking, the problem, prevention, and victim help that specific places are trying or starting to do. First, where does it start? When we think about sex trafficking, we kind of know the problem of it, but how does it start? Where does it start? And usually it starts with a facilitator, somebody who is involved in that specific crime or other crime and then continues to form into sex trafficking. Then you have the buyer, the one who in this situation creates a need for the facilitator to even go about this sort of sex trafficking. Then you have your victim, the person who is involved involuntarily or scared or coerced or whatever the case may be, but still the victim. The facilitator communicates with the buyer then acquires the victim. It's usually how it goes. When we happen to take a look at who's involved, usually we look at the victims. And the victims have such a wide range of where they come from, how old they are, the sex of them. A lot of the time, people are now starting to look at who's involved in committing the crime. Who is it that is creating this problem? So when we're talking about the average age here and who is involved, we are looking at who is committing the crime, not the victim. So this is an average age range of people who are committing adult sex trafficking, minor sex trafficking, both, or labor sex trafficking, which falls into the prostitution category, which does contribute to sex trafficking. So 2 areas that we're specifically going to look at because they address the problem of sex trafficking and they have sat down and done studies and looked at some prevention ideas. New Jersey and Minnesota are 2 areas that are experiencing high sex trafficking crime, and these are places that really need the help in this issue. So some direct quotes and issues that you are seeing here are: the public should be made aware. Sex trafficking is the biggest issue as it is. A lot of people wouldn't think, and I honestly wouldn't have thought before doing this research, Minnesota and New Jersey were on there as far as high sex trafficking went. That's just not something we think. And honestly, sometimes I don't even know that I would think that US is as high as it is. So it's important to understand that it is a really big issue and then understand all that involves sex trafficking. So the educational need is that we all should be made more aware of how big of an issue it is and what specific sex trafficking issue is big or, the biggest in our area. So New Jersey specifically, to their sex trafficking, sat down and talked to 20 people and identified a problem so they could come up with a solution. And they discussed sex trafficking involving the youth. What are problems and how can we address those problems? So services, places that victims can go for help, places that victims can feel safe, specifically the youth for New Jersey in this scenario. And they said, how do we keep them from running away? How do we keep them from not being scared? So they discussed that with a group of 20 people across the board. It was school officials or counselors or psychologists. A bunch of people got together and discussed and said, this is an issue. This is an issue that prevents us from 100% helping the youth involved in sex trafficking. So, and then another problem is the use of technology by youth. So sex trafficking has been able to take off because technology is the way it is now today. So it's advanced that and then taken away from the youth and them getting involved and not realizing they're getting involved. And our job is to educate the youth on how to use specific things. And New Jersey is staying that and trying to figure out ways that they can then branch out and get to the youth that are in trouble in sex trafficking and have access to this sort of thing and how to communicate with them. And that's a solution for New Jersey. So, a really big solution that Minnesota and other people, but specifically this empirical article discussed in their solution, was budgeting and money and where it was needed to help sex trafficking victims. And the overall census of this came down to it would be beneficial for our state, our taxpayers, to help support the intervention of this. So the solution also all around here from a direct quote is, with the youth and with juveniles, people getting involved in the crime, we need to figure out why they're getting involved in the crime if they're younger. If they're victims, if they're starting it up, we need to figure the problem out of why they are getting involved in sex trafficking. And it's important to know that there's still steps, there's prevention, there's solutions, there's figuring out the problem. There's just certain things that younger people may need, and then as they get older, it gets more important because they missed out when they were younger. So that is sex trafficking in 2 specific states, and it's important to know and educate yourself about your specific area and what your biggest sex trafficking issue is, where you're going, or things like that. Education is key, and in preventing sex trafficking or in helping those around you involved.